Hey everyone, welcome to the People and Perks podcast. Each week we're going to sit down with an employee benefits vendor and give you insights into the best benefits on the market so you can make better decisions for your people. I'm Sean, founder of Perkwise, the UK's first employee benefits discovery and review platform.
And I'm Adam. I'm a consultant here at Wingate Benefit Solutions. And today we're joined by Steve from Melios. Steve, how you doing?
Yeah, good. Thanks for having me on board.
Great. Before we get into the topic, Steve, it'd be good to hear a little bit more around your background, how you came to Melios, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, okay. So hi everyone. So my name's Steve Hancock. I am the divisional director at Melios. To give you a background who we are, Melios is part of the Helios group, and we provide neurodiversity assessments, so ADHD, autism combined assessments for adults and children and young people, as well as the kind of integrated therapy solutions, CBT, goal-based interventions, and the like. My background, I've been in the employee benefits market now for over 20 years. A range of companies, started with medical insurance, then I moved over into kind of dental and then to the risk side, and then went to a tech startup, and then joined Melios quite recently.
I guess full disclosure for the listener is that we all used to work together at one of those businesses. But no, really good to have you on. We're really excited to hear a little bit more about Melios and what you're doing in this space. So today we're going to talk about how undiagnosed neurodiversity is quietly reshaping your workforce. I would say that personally, this is something that's quite close to my heart because I've, for lack of a better term, been through the ringer of trying to get assessments for my son. So I know, I guess, the impact and the weight and the work that goes into trying to get diagnosis. So, flipping that to workplaces, we know that neurodiversity is not new. It's been around forever. It's just how certain people are wired. And I guess that we're becoming to a point now in the workplace where there's a lot more focus, rightly so, around making sure that workplaces are catering for people with neurodiverse needs, making sure that they're part of their inclusion strategy, making sure that they have the right strategies in place to support people. Because ultimately, where there lacks support, that's when you're going to see people leaving jobs, rising in burnout, all of that sort of stuff. So Steve, what do you think? Tell us a little bit more around what you've seen so far.
Yeah, great place to start, actually, Adam. I think you're right in what you said at the start there, that actually neurodiversity is not new, but actually I think it's become very topical and something now that everyone is homing into, and certainly in the workplace. And I think it's because traditionally it's been dealt with on the NHS. What we're seeing is growing NHS waiting lists, some places up to 10 years, depending where you are, typical postcode lottery. So that's causing confusion for individuals being employees, when I say that. Then that's kind of leading to employers being interested, then wanting to find a solution, a whole workforce solution, and then the employee benefits market struggling to kind of keep up to date with what's going on, the demands and how to support it. So everyone's looking for this answer. And I do honestly believe from the conversations that neurodiversity now is probably one of the top agenda points for most HR teams in the UK, because there's a real demand there. And I guess when you look at this workforce, and you kind of touched on it actually, Adam, with what you said there at the start, what we're seeing across this workforce on the conversations we're having is a growing number of employees who are struggling, often silently, potentially with burnout, anxiety, performance issues, and quietly underneath is undiagnosed neurodiversity there. Employees are masking it. They're just pushing through, not really understanding how their brain works and what's going on. And by the time they reach out for support, by the time they put their hand up and say, you know what, I can't handle this, I need some help, often it's too late and it's at the breaking point. And what they're seeing, employees are then seeing those absenteeism issues, those presenteeism issues. They may have retention challenges because employees are wanting to stay with an employer who probably they don't feel they can open out and they can put their hand up and say, I've got this, or I believe I've got this. How can you help me? Or how can you make reasonable adjustments for me? Or they may be seeing performance concerns as well with them.
Yeah, and I think that's like it's a very good point, because there is a little bit of fear of I guess like negative reactions for employees, and I guess anybody, right? Like if you think that you're not coping and you don't know how to reach out for support, some people actually don't want to reach out for support because they might think that, oh, if I tell my employer I'm struggling, then am I going to be cast aside or not getting the support I need, which is where I guess benefits come into play, right? Like if you can communicate a good benefits package, people can hopefully get some access to support. So I guess we're talking about like, how can businesses start to think about how to address this, right? Like, so there's this massive group of people. So I think they say 1 in 5 people has neurodiverse needs. So it's a 20% of your workforce could basically have needs that need to be catered for. I think employers probably think that number is a lot less. I think that they probably think that not everyone, but people assume that there's not that many people who are struggling. We've not had people come to us. That doesn't mean that there's not people there who are struggling. What do you think people need to do in terms of trying to help identify or trying to help employees know where to go?
Yeah, well, just taking a step back, actually, the CIPD did a survey and they say that they see a 30% productivity uplift with neuro-inclusive practices in the workplace. So you're absolutely right. When you look at them stats, like 20% of the workforce diagnosed or undiagnosed, and that is an issue there. There's an opportunity here, and I think we need to flip this on their head, that there's a lot of people not being honest about it. Maybe they don't want to be diagnosed with it, not sure, but we need to see it as a superpower in the workplace, and we need employers to adapt so they can maximize the potential of these employees and reduce the stigma. And so to go to your question there is, I think we need to look at what's available to employees and what support packages we can offer to them, and actually how to access them. How can you make it easy for employees to access the services that they require? And that's certainly where we at Melios have been really focusing in on.
Why do you think, thanks, Steve, why do you think so many employees struggle for a long time, could be even years before like getting clarity or support of like this is the path that they want to go down? And do you think it's up to the employee to seek help, or where does the employer fit in with that?
Question there. I think the stigma attached to it, being like, oh, I've got ADHD or I've got autism, should I be in this type of job? Am I going to be overlooked for a promotion because I've got ADHD? Because I don't feel great in this type of environment or whatever else, or I feel awkward in here, I won't get promoted because I can't handle big groups or loud situations or anything like that. But also, there's also another flip side, if I can, and that is the employees' children as well. That actually, if employees' children are going through this, then actually the effect it can have on the employee as well in the workplace. And actually, do they feel that they can put their hand up to their employer? And is their employer offering a solution for their employees? Again, this is something that we're starting to see employees are asking us now, is what solutions have you got for for the dependents of our employees?
Yeah, that's such a good point, actually, because I can give you real world insight into that, because not in my current employer, but where I worked in the past, and when we first had, we first thought that my son might have neurodiverse needs. He's in reception year 1 of school. Nearly every day after school is a battle. Like it's, real meltdowns. Like we don't know what's going on. We're stressed out because we don't have a clue what's going on. We don't know what to do. It's actually very hard to then go into work and talk about what's going on, because you just think that your situation is so unique, and you think, well, what's going wrong at home? Like, I can't really talk to people about it because they don't seem to have these problems with their kids. So you're 100% right. Like, that, it's not, obviously it's crucial that employees get the support they need, but also it comes back to, I guess, culture and how you show up to work, and if you can talk about those sorts of issues. And obviously I'm not expecting that every line manager or every colleague is going to know what to do and what to say, but then I guess it comes back to the benefits that we're talking about, right, and how people can access them.
And I think the culture is the really interesting point, actually, because right now we've got this new generation coming into the workplace. These Gen Zs are coming through, which means that unfortunately we're starting to get old and be them people born in the 19s, whatevers, and you get ridiculed for it now, don't you? So I see. And I think there's been this generational shift in the workplace where these large packages that employee benefits of this and this, actually, they're not wanted. The talent coming through care more about the culture, and actually, how's the employer going to help me if I have this issue or I have this question? What's the employer going to do for me? And whilst they may be the instigator here, they're driving it forward. The millennials and the like are going to be developing new expectations, being like, actually, that makes sense. Actually, how can you help me? As you say there, my kid's got this, and actually, I'm struggling now to do, and I'm a valued employee, but he's put me in an awkward situation.
If this is something that is, as we said, so prevalent, 20% of the workforce it impacts, but it's quietly affecting performance and well-being. The question then is, like, how do employees respond?
And I guess it kind of goes back to that kind of earlier point I made, that a lot of employers want to provide something. They want to offer a solution, but because it's relatively new in this employee benefits market, in the landscape of benefits, it's, well, how do we solve it? Do you look at an embedded solution, maybe in some kind of private medical insurance policy? Or do you look at a standalone solution and see what can be developed there and put in place? And that's certainly where we have been looking as well, at the different pathways, the different access points, to make it easier for people to start their journey with us.
Can you talk about, I guess it's a really good time to introduce a bit more about Melios and how it is that you support employers and employees and what you do.
Yeah, okay, great. So when we're looking at the support area, there's kind of four main pathways into starting that kind of diagnosis or treatment or providing some kind of services. You've got the first one, which is kind of the traditional pathway. So this is straight into a ADHD, autism assessment, combined assessment. It's mentioned adults or children, young people. We do it from about the age of 6 there. And that's straight into it. And the employer may say, we're going to fund it ourselves, or they may say, this is on a self-pay, or we'll pay a little bit towards it. As I mentioned a while ago, there's a growing shift in employers at least offering some kind of cover for the dependents, maybe on a self-pay for that, because even children now on waiting list 4 years. You're looking 4 to 5 years now on a waiting list. Some NHS trusts are stopping that, closing the waiting list there. So that's the kind of traditional one. We've got one called a needs-led approach, which starts the journey upstream to bring more clarity at the first point. And I'll come back to that if I can, because I want to really dive into that one, because that's becoming really popular. The other one we've got is kind of this ITS, is integrated therapy solution. So this is away from the autism, ADHD combined side, but more into cognitive behavioral therapy stuff, goal-based interventions, speech and language maybe, and that kind of work instead. So I want to spend some time with a clinician to talk about this, or this has been previously identified. Can I talk to someone about that? And then the other side that we've got, other pathway, is HR needing help. That can be manager coaching. It could be people coaching. And also the case of simply employee comes to HR saying, I'm suffering from this. And the HR being able to know that we're on their side and they can book in a session with us and we can spend time with that employee and then we can make our recommendations. So those tend to be the four main routes into us. I just want to go back to this needs-led approach, because this is really popular right now for employers as an access point into this kind of journey there. And I guess it comes from the fact is that not everyone needs diagnosis straight away. Some people actually want some clarity first and to understand what's actually going on underneath and what then support they might need. I kind of branded it almost like a mental health MOT is the way I kind of talk about it. So we call it a core needs assessment. The product's called a core needs assessment, and it acts as a great entry point for these for employees who want to offer something for their employees. So what we often find is employees will fund this element of it for their staff, and then maybe anything else is on a self-pay basis there. What they get is a couple of hours with an experienced clinician designed to bring clarity rather than jumping straight into a label, shall we call it, but to take a step back and see the whole picture, talk about experiences, the strengths, the challenges, what's going on, and then help them identify what the next steps might be for them. So this could be, in a report, what you've talked about, actually maybe an ADHD autism combined assessment might be the next logical step. Fine, let's go down that route. Or it could be actually some of the therapy solutions that I mentioned. You think you've got this, but actually what you're showing and experiencing is probably more around the kind of anxiety side. So maybe we can address that to start with. It could be actually, you've got an EAP at work, so let's take you down the EAP route instead. Or it may be actually you go via your PMI or self-help. What we have actually found as well is some people just get a no further actions required type report. And that for me is where it shows that it's working, that it's not about pushing people down into, you must have an ADHD assessment now because you've seen us for this. It's these people just wanted a few hours just to talk to a clinician, talk about how they're feeling and what they think is up with them. And then the professional to listen, to put an arm around them and to talk about what they believe as well. I think that is super important from an employer, that you're showing that duty of care, that you know that neurodiversity is very topical and your employees are asking for it. And upstream now, there's this product that helps the employees, that provides a solution before they go into these more costly type of assessments.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds great. I mean, so when it comes to like these like MOTs that you talk about, so let's say I'm a HRD, I've got 200 staff, I roll out this service to my employees. What's next? Like, so do people who think they might need to do these types of assessments apply, or can it be done by anyone? Like, how does that work?
Yeah. So first of all, what we'd do is we'd sit down with the employer and talk about pathways. So if your employee mentioned this, like the employee mentioned suicide, for example, what products or what services do you have in place so we can, follow your pathways as well? Otherwise, we'll just follow ours. So what have you got? Have you got PMI? Have you got an EAP? Have you got this? You got occupational health? What have you got? And we can tailor it accordingly to what happens. Perspective. Yep. So the employee will offer this out to their staff and say, you've got this available for you. The employee will book it in. They'll have an initial screening appointment with us where they'll be talked to what's going to happen, what the process will be. We'll do exclusions and safeguarding criteria point first, just to make sure that they are suitable to continue. And then the appointment will go in then with the experienced clinician with them. For the employer, it depends who they want to make it available for. What we're seeing is the employers are basically saying to their staff members, if you want it, have it.
And what about, so further downstream, let's say you help people get a diagnosis and they get diagnosed, whether it's ADHD, autism, something combined. What next? Is that it for your service to that employer? Like, what happens next?
I always like to say that diagnosis isn't the destination. And so from our perspective, we see it as, I hate the cliche journey. I mean, it's been used to death, hasn't it? X Factor always talked about it, didn't it? That's going back some years. But it's not the destination at that point. It's, okay, you've got this. So then there'll be a 30-minute time consultation with the clinician who will take them through the report and talk about next steps. And that may be medication for them. It may be some post-diagnosis support as well. So what kind of package can we put in place for them? Do you need us to speak to the employer? If we're talking about kids, shall we speak to the school and put that in place? Shall we spend some time booking 3 sessions to talk about coping mechanisms or ways to deal in situations? Whatever's needed for the individual. I think that is the difference in this employee benefits market. You're not just buying a product and putting it in place. It's about, what does the member need, and so what can we provide for them to help them along their, I'm going to say it, but their journey.
That's great. It's almost like company can say that they have a neurodiversity benefit, right? But then there's a difference between having a neurodiversity benefit and then actually supporting neurodivergent employees. And it sounds like with the 4 pillars that you mentioned that you do, it really covers like the whole end to end, and like even to the point where you help train the HR leaders, and you help train the employees. That just goes into where we were speaking about at the beginning around like creating a culture, and that like really helps to build that onto that culture. Could you talk a bit about like the training programs and like how, once they've been diagnosed, like how they can then go and actually support their employees, and how that then improves the business overall.
Yeah. So yeah, the training side of the business is becoming really popular right now. And I think if you put yourself in a manager's shoes, you turn up to work, it's a Monday morning, you're clearing your backlog, and then someone puts some time in your diary and they say, right, just let you know, I've been diagnosed as having ADHD. And then suddenly the people manager's got to think, right, okay, what does that mean? Okay, how can we help support you? Well, you'd hope they'd be thinking, how can we help support you? What practical steps can we put in place to help you so you can flourish in this workplace? I remember there's the report, the Mayfield report actually said that for every £1 spent on mental health, employees see a £4.70 return. So actually, there's a big thing here on employers to say, you know what, if you invest in this, right, you're going to get a lot back from your employees here. So one of the sides here is this coaching. Now, again, like I've kind of mentioned, it's not a one-size-fits-all method. So some will want it virtually. Some will want it in person. Some will want a seminar type approach where 100 people managers dial in. But some would prefer a more smaller 10 to 15 people managers, really interactive type of session. So we can work according to what employers want, and equally what the topics that they'll want to talk about. Is it the legislation point of view, or is it more about practical tips? Actually, what does being neurodiverse in the workplace actually mean? How do these employees cope in this situation? But equally, how can you make it good or adaptable for the undiagnosed employees, or the employees who are diagnosed and don't want to put their hand up? So what steps can you put in place to make it accommodating for all people there? Again, it depends on whatever they need, but it is really, really popular right now. A lot of our clinicians are traveling all over the UK attending these type of events.
And I guess like, so where you're doing these, whatever part of your service it could be like these checks, these MOT type things. It could be after people have started to be diagnosed. Do you give the employer insights into their workforce? So, i.e., obviously nothing specific around individuals, but aggregated data, should we say, so that they can then shape what comes next, like if they need like the training that you've mentioned, the coaching, or like do they need to do more from a policy and strategy perspective? Like, do you support with that?
Yes, certainly on the policy and the strategy perspective, we want to help employees. Yes, we provide this service, the autism assessments, the ADHD assessments, the combined assessments, and all the other the treatment side as well. But what we want to do is use our expertise to help and inform the employer. So yes, we can look at data, and yes, we can look at feeding back saying this is what your workforce is like. We can't go into specifics of it, obviously. But equally, we can aggregate it. People in your type of industry tend to be like this. Your industry tends to attract X percent, and this is how we can help support you in this type of things. Because, knowledge is power, and data gives you the knowledge to help you make informed decisions. And some of that we can support. Some of it is other companies who can help them to make the workplace and home life better for the employees.
How should employers think about ROI when it comes to like neurodiversity support?
Yeah, it's a good question, isn't it? This ROI side, because, when you look at return of investment, and I kind of mentioned a stat there, which is
Yeah.
the Keep Britain Working government's report when they've looked across a lot of mental health and neurodiversity type benefits there. You've got your tangible and your intangible sides here. So yes, you can look at the kind of retention rates of your staff. We know that actually having a good neurodiverse kind of program in place, neuroinclusive practices, can reduce staff turnover to as low as 8%. I think the national average is about 34%. So we know that actually if you put something in place, you're going to help. But actually how to measure that, because you're going to have your tangible, your retention rate. You can look at your absentee data. Absentee data is difficult because you don't collect it. Equally, you're going to look at your satisfaction score of your employers, actually. Satisfaction score going on. Some of it you can attribute. Like I mentioned, for every pound you put in, you're going to see about £4.70 return because of productivity levels and everything else like that. But then you're going to have your ones that you can't measure, which is just the enjoyment, that actually it's a nice place to work. It's promoted as neuro-inclusive as well, that people want to work there and to share their experiences. And as I mentioned, hopefully then the employees see that this is a superpower, and actually we should encourage people to want to put their head above the parapet and say, hey, I've got ADHD, or I believe I've got ADHD, and I'm not embarrassed about it.
Yeah.
What's the? Oh, sorry, Anna.
So I was just going to echo that point. I think,
Yeah.
I think, having that inclusive culture, having that workplace where people feel comfortable being themselves and getting the support they need, it impacts all of those metrics you just touched on there, Steve. And it sometimes is hard to measure what a single solution might be doing to those, but part of the overall benefits package that people have and, policies that they have can contribute to all of that, I think. So yeah, I definitely echo those points. Sorry, Sean.
Yeah. No, I was just gonna say, I guess to the flip side to that is like, you got to for companies, it's what's the cost of doing nothing, right? It definitely, like based on what we've been speaking about, it's far greater than just the outlay for getting your employees help where they need it, right?
And I think that's the key. You know what? That's a great point, isn't it? Is what's the cost of doing nothing here? Because if a company's looking and saying, you know what, we're having people are taking days off here and days off there, and they can't really attribute why, there will be a reason why that's going on there. So when you look at some of our things that we've got, the employer doesn't actually need to fund them. They can offer them out on a self-pay basis. So what is the cost? Well, to the employer, the cost is zero. Actually, they're just opening out the access for their employees, and they're helping their employees to start that journey. Now, yes, we have employers who want to fund the core needs, and some will fund everything that's there. But some employers got lots of money, some haven't. It's you can design this around what your budget is.
So what about the future, Steve? Like, where do you see, like, obviously this is a evolving area, especially when it comes to employee benefits, but, in general in the workforce. What do you see the future as? Like, where do you see this going?
Some people do, neurodiverse, it's a fad. It's just gone on the road of the men's health, women's health, neurodiversity. I actually don't think this is a fad, and I don't think it's going away. It is such a new benefit, and it's only going to go from strength to strength. We know the NHS has got lots of pressures financially. The waiting lists are growing. So the NHS is going to start reducing access to this. You see it, just Google it and you'll see what the NHS are saying now, because it is, you almost can't put enough money into this kind of diagnosis side. So there is going to put more pressure on the private side to pick up this. So I think we will move to a point where neurodiversity is no longer just seen purely as a well-being type of topic that people talk about and is nice to talk about and it's cool to talk about, but something that directly impacts the productivity, the retention, and as we mentioned at the start, the culture of a business. I think the product suite will evolve according to the way the workforces are evolving. The next generation are coming through. I mean, you mentioned the 20%. Right now, I hear stories are going to be 75% in the next generation types. The products are going to change. Coaching is going to be more required. HR, there's going to be more pressure on HR to provide some kind of offering or some kind of solution in some shape or form. So, yeah, I think it's one of these benefits that's only going to go from strength to strength and it isn't going away anytime soon.
Yeah, I think great point to close on, I think. And the more support services, the more solutions that we can get out there that for employers to consider, it could be that businesses, find an untapped resource. They find people with these superpowers and find ways of getting the best out of them. So it's a really interesting area for, I reckon, the benefits market in general, but really interesting for employers as well, because like you say, having that strategy, having that robust solution in place that could support is, could really be, it's life-changing for individuals. So it could be life-changing for businesses, definitely. Steve, I guess final question for you. What's the one thing that you would want a HRD or a business owner to take away from this?
I would say that there is a solution. I think, for a lot of HRs, HRDs, HR managers, business owners, they are probably thinking, we know our staff want this benefit, but we don't think it probably is there, or maybe it's not, we can't afford it or anything like that. Actually, yes, you can. There is a solution out there, and, put your hand up.
Great. Thanks, Steve. It's been it's been really good to have you on. And I guess for anybody listening, if you want to learn more about Melios and what they do, feel free to reach out. Head over to the Perkwise website, or if you need any advice around your benefits package, reach out to us at Wingate Benefit Solutions. But Steve, thank you again. Good to see you. And on to the next one. Thanks very much, everyone.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Bye.